First of all, I want to say how wonderful it is to be here, and how really for me, how important coming here was. You'll hear in my voice, I've got a terrible case of laryngitis. So I've been nursing my voice for the last few days, hoping that I can make it through the speech. But also I was back in the States for a few weeks over the holidays, and had to race out in front of a blizzard that left 2 feet of snow in the Boston area. Changed my flight to make sure that I could be here. I hope that at the end of this hour, you will find this topic, if you don't find it already, as meaningful as I do. I'd like to start with a question. What would you do? What would you do if you only had 5 years left to live? We've all known people who have died young or died just as they were coming into their prime. It's a serious question. I had a client about 10 years ago who died in his early 50s. And he was just coming alive. I mean, he was extraordinarily active in his community. He had a wonderful family life. His business was an extraordinary business. Lovely relationships with his daughters. He got a brain tumor and died really quickly. Now, his relationship, he was a client of mine, and when he came in to see me, that success wasn't there. In fact, he came in to see me 2 years earlier. And his family life was really a mess at that time. He was quite concerned both about his relationship with his daughters, his relationship with his wife. He had a business where he was terribly unhappy. And he had a dream. His dream was to ride his bike across the country, across America. He felt trapped. He felt in a kind of prison. And I felt quite privileged to do work with him, to help him change his life. In fact, so much so that 1 year after he came in, he was riding his bike across the country, and he had what he called a road to Damascus experience. He dropped the bike by the side of the road, pulled out his cell phone and called me, and he said, "George, I just want you to know, if I were to die tomorrow, I've accomplished everything that I wanted in life. My life is rich with meaning, truly fulfilled." That was an amazing moment for me to hear, but even more amazing when on the day of his death, I got a call from his daughters asking me to have a word with him. That he knew he was about to die, and he had asked to talk to me. Of course, he couldn't speak, so he would write things down for them, and he wanted to hear my voice. Life planning is not about dying, but it's making sure that we live that life that he felt he had for the last year and a half of his life. So if we're thinking about it, what is life planning? And it starts off for the client. I mean, one of the amazing things for the client, in fact, this is extraordinary, the difference between what it is for the client and what it is for us. For the client, it starts off with the conversation of a lifetime. I mean, more often than not, that's the kind of response you get to the very first meeting that you have with a client. Now, it's much more than that. It includes, obviously for this fellow, it includes action and accomplishment on what is most meaningful, what's most important to accomplish in one's life. The accomplishment, in fact, of one's dreams. But for us, as rich as that experience is in delivering that for the client, and it is a rich experience doing that, for us as a business owner, it is a highly structured, client-centered interview process that has measurable deliverables at the end of each stage. So it's just extraordinary, this combination of what you're able to do with what we call life planning. This is the model that we use. We call it Evoke. And Evoke is an acronym for the 5 stages. Of life planning. And you'll see, you can read them yourselves. Each of these is a phase. E for exploration, V for vision, O for obstacles, K for knowledge, and E for execution. They're the phases of an interview process. That interview could take place in an hour for a middle-income client. And you can do an extraordinary job. Or for a more well-to-do client, it might take place over a series of interviews. In most of our situations with our clients, that's what we find. What's interesting, this very first conversation, I'm going to go through each of these phases just a little bit to give you a sense of what the skill sets are that we use to accomplish this experience for a client. The first meeting, E for exploration, what is key is establishing this extraordinary sense of rapport and trust so that the client is really moved and thrilled to share with you what is most important in their life. You know, it's important that we get this. These are different skill sets from what we use when we're having a wonderful conversation at a dinner party or at a cocktail party. I mean, it's a thrill. It's wonderful. You meet someone and you discover that they vacation in Tuscany as you do, and you start comparing what the towns are, and they start talking about it, and then you leap in and you interrupt them, and you share what you're interested in, and the conversation goes back and forth like a ping pong ball or tennis ball. And it's exciting, it's dynamic. You're doing a dance with a person. It's wonderful. But if you do that with a client, trying to deliver life planning, think what happens. You know, they bring up something incidental about Tuscany, and you interrupt them and say, oh, I love Tuscany. You know, do you know Montalcino? Have you been there? And and so suddenly the conversation has shifted. What happens? You know, why is it that clients, so often in the surveys, they talk about how they don't trust financial advisors? There's even a good deal of anger in relation to us. And one of the reasons is that they never have this rich conversation. So how do we set that up? And how we set it up is by not engaging in that kind of cocktail party conversation, which is fun, but ultimately superficial. What is that wonderful, that conversation of a lifetime? What is that like? And if you think about it, if you've ever had one, it's where the person that you're talking with really takes you seriously, really is interested in who you are, in what you aspire to, or what you're concerned with, and establishes that by great listening skills. So rather than interrupting and bouncing back and forth with this excitement of a cocktail party, we really listen. The first skill set that we use in exploration is just simply listening without interrupting. And the second skill set is being aware of what the emotional undercurrents might be, and being able to empathize in a way that the client really gets that we're there. Another skill set in this particular conversation is open-ended questions. Not going when the client says, I really love to garden. Oh, that's my favorite occupation as well. And taking over the conversation, taking it back from the client. But rather going, wow, wonderful, wonderful. And just leaving the conversation open for the client to move. Usually, a client is entering this meeting with something extremely important to share. Something about their aspiration that's never been shared in a conversation with a financial advisor before, or something about their concerns. And they're very nervous that they might not get to this, and at the same time, they're very nervous that they will get to it, because it's scary having a conversation of real meaning with somebody. So you can imagine the relief when it is that you crack a joke or you interrupt and the client goes, oh gosh, thank goodness I won't have to get to what I really care about. So very important to leave it open so that the client has the opportunity to actually get to the place that they want to. And often it's a matter of actually following the feelings. I don't mean that we talk about them, but that we're aware of them. So one of the things in addition to empathy is just being more aware of what the feeling tone is in a conversation and allowing it to be there rather than cracking a joke or bringing out the spreadsheets. The client directs the conversation here. In the second phase of Evoke, the second phase is vision. And so we're moving from this sense of extraordinary rapport, this conversation of a lifetime, this sense of tremendous trust, to the possibility of inspiration. And here, in this part of the interview process, we talk about it as inspiring, exhilarating, and lighting the torch is the term I'm borrowing from my second book. There's a moment in this conversation where the client just comes alive. And we lead up to that moment by using a series of goal exercises. One of them that I love is called Ideal Day, Ideal Week, Ideal Year. What if you actually lived your ideal day, what would it look like? Hour by hour, how would you live? What would your life be like? And similarly, ideal week. Would you go into the office every day? Would you not? What does it look like? An ideal year, where would you be spending your time? Just getting the client to dream. But we also ask deeply reflective questions. I'm best known for something called the 3 questions, and in one of them, we reflect on this question of what if there were only 5 years left? What's really important to you? The skill sets that we use here are endless. Appreciation, optimism, excitement, and interest. And the kind of recognition inside ourselves as we're facilitating this conversation that what we're delivering to a client is freedom, is what it is, what it would feel like for them. And it's unique to every person that we meet. It's unique to every client. We're delivering freedom to them. And another way of viewing this, there was a wonderful BBC article on their website a couple of days ago. I don't know if you saw it, but talking about genius and asking the question, is there a genius in everyone? One of my favorite poets who lived in London nearly all of his life, William Blake, said that there's something he called the poetic genius inside of everybody, and it's unique. So how do we bring that forth? So that's what that second meeting is about. And at the end of the meeting, the client is exhilarated, is excited. There's a vitality to them and a vigor and an eagerness to move on, along with a little bit of skepticism, a little bit of doubt. Can you really deliver this? And of course, it's not me that's going to deliver it, it's them. All I'm doing is facilitating the process and getting them so excited that they can put the energy into making it happen. So that's the third meeting. It leads us up to the third meeting. Where does that doubt, where does that skepticism come from? And how do we cut through it to action? And it's a dynamic meeting. because they're burning. I mean, they're on fire. They want this life. And at the same time, they have this trepidation about it. Can we really make it happen? And you've thought about it. You've done some looking at the figures. You have an idea. In fact, you've got lots of ideas, kind of outside the box ideas. But they're willing to take this transformation in their lives seriously because of those first two meetings, because you've built the rapport, you've built the trust, and then you've inspired them and said, you can do this. So really, it's just facilitating that hunger inside of them for what's meaningful in their life, for what would make their life rich. So obstacles is a great meeting. It's where it becomes real, and it's where where action plans begin to be created. The next meeting is knowledge, and that's what we do. I mean, most of us are financial planners, and that's where we do our financial plan. We put it all together. The cool thing there is that there's not a lot of back and filling. We know what the client's after. And so our plan is exactly tailored to what the client wants, much more so than a traditional plan. And finally, in execution, this is where action and transactions take place. And it's great from our side in the things that often are ticklish with a client, getting them to execute on their estate plan or to buy the life insurance, whatever it is. That's not a problem because we've tied it to what they care about. But what's more exciting, not just for the clients, but for us, is that the actions here are also personal actions. They probably have already taken a number of the actions, but they're going to take the rest of them to deliver on that life that they really want to live. So it's just terribly exciting. So how does this, what's the linchpin for this? Or the leverage point? What is the point of transformation? And it is this moment in the vision meeting where the client gets on fire, where they get exhilarated and excited. And it's where we deliver this thing we call lighting the torch. Here are some samples, just a couple of samples. These are fairly typical of what might come out in what we call the third question. Most of you have read or heard of my 3 questions, so I've not listed them here, but I will speak them briefly to you for those of you who haven't. There are 3 questions. This is one of the goal exercises. We typically do 3 or 4 goal exercises. And the reason we do different ones is because people respond in different ways to different structures, to different ways of thinking, to different ways that their emotions are called forth, their aspirations are called forth. The first of the 3 questions is, if you had all the money you needed for the rest of your life, what would you do? So it gets the client free to just dream. Well, they just won the lottery. It's wonderful. It kind of loosens them up. We don't go deep until we really have permission. So they get excited with that one. Then we ask this more serious one about 5 years left to live. And that's more reflective, and they're willing to go there. And then that leads really to the third question, which is really the life or death question. It's if you suddenly discovered you only had 24 hours left to go, what did you miss? Not what would you do, but what did you miss? What did you not get to do? Who did you not get to be? And these are some samples. So what's extraordinary about these samples of the response to the third question is it's not what we thought it was. It's not about the retirement plan. It's not about, the full financial plan. It's not about investments. You will rarely see that in the life or death question, the end of the third question, as you might imagine. These are personal and meaningful. So what we've discovered is that if you deliver on these, and these require all the financial excuses to be addressed. Nobody can address these with a client. Nobody in the world better than a financial advisor, a trained financial planner. Nobody can. Because we can address the money issues and say, don't worry about that. We'll take care of that. So they can't get away with their money excuses. We know the figures. And the other thing that's quite wonderful is that these are so much simpler in many ways to deliver, even though I'm not going to deliver them. I mean, what do I know about, the relationship with our 6-year-old son? Although I've got a couple of 6-year-old daughters that I'm learning about having an authentic relationship with myself right now. But I'm not a therapist. I'm not a family counselor. So how do we deliver these? Because that's where your skepticism is likely to come in. Well, I'm not going to. As I say, I've inspired them. I've let them know that they can accomplish these. So I turn it back to the client. So how could you do this? And typically, one of my clients came in with this authentic relationship, and it was with their 6-year-old son. And I said to him, "What if I got you 10 hours extra a week, and you were able to dedicate that time to your son? How would that be?" And he teared up a bit, and he said, "Yeah, that would do it. I could do it." Part of it was about his own authenticity as well, which was interesting. But time is money. So we come back ultimately to the spreadsheets, to the cash flow modeling, to doing a great financial plan for the person. But we've got targeted what they really care about. They're becoming clients for life. So we deliver on these things, and we deliver in short order. The kinds of things that come up, you can see it here. Family is the number one thing that comes up, family and relationship. Doesn't come up in everybody's plan, but in most people's. Second most common one is actually something about their values, and that's where the authenticity arises here. The third most common thing is creativity, and you can see that here in the client B, where they want to act in independent films. And you can bet with that kind of passion that they're creative with their business as well. So the third most common thing is actually creativity. The fourth most common thing is community. Maybe the best examples here are the business and maybe the trip to Africa. And then the final one is a sense of place or environment, and Africa plays in here. So once again, what we're delivering to the client is a sense for them of freedom. Not feeling trapped and not able to do these things. And also the possibility of living into their own brilliance, their own potential, however you want to frame it. It's an extraordinary thing. And as I say, it doesn't take training in any of these. All it takes is asking questions and being supportive and asking the client, how would you do that? Having a few ideas in the back of your head so you can pepper the conversation with your confidence that these things can be done. So the next question is, all right, yeah, maybe this takes a little extra time. I actually argue this takes much less time than your traditional work, and we'll get to that. But how do I get paid for it? All right? So let's go on and look at that. So these are the three models that have been in vogue. We've got the investment manager, we've got the financial planner, we've got the financial life planner. So what are the objectives here? What's the value? What's the target? What are the life goals? And you can see the investment manager, oh, we want to beat the market. We all know how challenging that is and how challenging it is in our relationship with clients, moreover. It automatically sets up some anxiety around those quarterly or annual meetings and gets us scampering in terms of redefining what the market is or what our proposition is. It's a challenging thing. And it's just money that we're aiming at, and the life goals, well, they're pretty much not considered. Financial planner, yeah, we ask some questions. We do a data gatherer about what the client cares about, but it's kind of in the background. We're really aiming at a number. What's the distribution going to be in retirement, basically? And we do a comprehensive financial plan, so we touch all the bases. Obviously, both of these things are terribly important in the final picture to a financial life planner. Financial life planner will do all of these things. But in the financial life planner, the focus shifts. It shifts. The target is the life you want. What is the life that you want, your client wants? And making sure that you have that great relationship that delivers it. So you have a meaningful financial life plan is the value, and you have an integration of the life goals into all the process. Let's look at some numbers on this. This was a study by a group called Prince & Associates. They're a well-known survey firm in America. And they apparently didn't know the term life planning, so they used lifestyle. That's been used here as well. And you can see the three models. I mean, distribution, what it stands for is the focus on retirement, the focus on basically financial planning. And you can see, depending on what kind of an advisor you are, what your emphasis is, that you get very little additional assets if you're an investment advisor constantly racing against the market. If your focus is more on distribution, you're likely to get more assets and some additional services. But with that tremendous bond of trust and that excitement, that sense of freedom that comes with a client, with delivering a client their life plan, you get tremendous benefits in terms of more assets and additional services. Similarly, and I've separated this slide because I think it's terribly important, and you'll see why in a moment, you get 4 times as many referrals if you're basically a life planner as opposed to a traditional financial planner, and an infinite number of more referrals than as an investment advisor. This will make the business much more successful in many ways. Will affect closing ratios and all other kinds of things. This is a survey that we ran from, and this was, again, a small survey. Prince & Associates was much larger. We did this survey with people who had actually done the full gamut of our programs. So they'd done our signature 5-day training and also were registered life planners. And you can see the benefits. Steeper, longer lasting relationships with clients, 81%. 83% made my business more satisfying. But the number I'm most proud of, and I think is actually the most meaningful number, is this final one, improved the quality of my own life. And the reason is that what we do in the 5-day training that we do is we insist that planners practice life planning on each other. They take the whole 5 days and just life plan each other. So that what happens is that people leave that program having been life planned. So it's just like a client. You know, what is the satisfaction level of your clients at the end of your meeting, your meetings with them? How many of them would say, it really has improved the quality of my life? That's really what this says. One of the things that we argue is that you really can't be a life planner, that you will be blocked in some way in your effectiveness if you've not been life planned yourself. And the reason is, if you go back to those answers to the 3 questions, there's always something there for all of us that we've not quite acted on, that we've not quite figured out, that's in the background. And that's like a cloud over our life because we've not really, done it in some way. And when we've challenged ourselves to do it, we know how to challenge a client as well. And also how to be empathic in that engagement around these deeply important issues and questions. So what the 3rd question here says to me is life planning works. And the only thing I'm wondering about is what happened with those other 12%? I want to go back and find out who they were. Coming back to these 3 models, what is the greatest risk that we face? What's the greatest risk to us as to our businesses in some way? As well as what is the greatest risk that the client sees? Is it a 1929 size market crash? Is it a financial plan that's not in place? Or is it that the client's not living into their dreams? I guarantee you that when you come to that life or death 24-hour question, you don't find the 1929 sized market crash, you don't find the financial plan as being a major issue for clients. You rarely find that in the third question. I find it occasionally because I mostly work with financial planners now. So they're more attuned to those questions. But overwhelmingly, what you get is what they really dream about, what they really care about. So what's most important is that we deliver that. That's the greatest risk in a client's life. And what happens is that if it's not delivered, they're going to act out at some point. They're going to either not have the full vigor in their life to bring to their businesses and to deliver their own finance to their family. But they're also, at some point, it's quite possible that they're going to go do something that you're totally unprepared for. And you've put their assets away in funds where they can't get access to them, and they need them. So it impacts their finances in multiple ways. And moreover, what a tragedy. What's the greatest tragedy? What a tragedy that someone who's come to see us, we've not really set it up so that they can live into their dreams. Going a little further with the business case, we've covered some of these things, and I'll add a few more. One of the reasons that life planning is the most efficient way to do financial planning by far is these points that you get clients for life. So you have far greater retention at the end of a period of market collapse. The clients don't leave you. And you have this advisor income stream that's automatic rather than constantly having to go out and replenish your book of business, replenishing your supply. So you don't have to waste all that time in selling. The higher percentage of assets under management, a great financial planner will get close to 100%, if not 100%, of assets under management. Life planner is virtually assured you're going to get all the assets under management, not just a percentage. This thing about closing ratios, referrals are key here. If you look the point just below the closing ratios, it says referrals after first meeting. And I've got the lights on me, so I can't see where Adam Young is. But Adam was the first person. He's in this room, and he was the first person to point this out to me. He said, I'm getting referrals after the first meeting. It used to take me a couple of years to get a referral from a client to really prove to them my worth. But you can see from that first meeting, if a client has the conversation of a lifetime, they're going to be referring people to you right away. And this sets up extraordinary things. It means that your closing ratio is going to be much higher. And this, again, I don't have a survey on, but anecdotally from RLPs all across the world, what I'm hearing is we close in between 80 and 100% of our clients. Really experienced financial life planners are closing close to 100% of their clients. This is set up by a business that has strong referrals, because the referrals are coming in a way the sales already been made because of those strong referrals. The other thing, very interesting, I think I'm pretty gentle and pretty empathic in my writing online when I'm online. And there was a survey that really got my dander up a few weeks ago, or actually a few months ago, and was posted on one of the blog or forums. I think it was a LinkedIn forum, maybe it was through IFA Life that I follow. And it was a survey that was reported by an American news journal. I don't know that it's related to the one here, but it's called Investment News, and it's the weekly, it's the major weekly journal in America. And it was reporting this survey where it said, you know, the recession has slowed down our business, all of our businesses. That what's happening is that it used to take us 3.2 meetings to close a client. And now it's taking us 4.67 meetings to close a client. I couldn't believe it. What are you selling? And what kind of business are you in? I was so angry. I couldn't believe. Who are they interviewing? Certainly not the people that I'm working with. 4.67 meetings. What an inefficient way to run a business. The classic close for life planners, again, this is anecdotal, but I hear it every place, and I also hear it from really developed cash flow financial planners as well, is that they're closing in the first meeting, or at worst, they're closing by the beginning of the second meeting. The cash comes in. So it has to do with a change of emphasis. And it's an understated value because, you know, you can advertise. You see all the financial companies advertising how we do this and that for the company, for the client, how we care. Life planners deliver. And that delivers the business. That's the difference. So referrals after the first meeting, very important. Perhaps the greatest economic benefit is that this life planning is transferable, it's trainable, it's scalable, it's saleable, because it's a structured interview process with measurable deliverables at the end. So you can embed it in the business. And the more people that do it, the more it means that you can bring people in who are already familiar with it. One of the things that Mark Tiberghien, the great practice management guru in America, talks about is the sale value of companies. And he has done many studies in regard to them. And one of those studies I recall was about the transition that is happening here. It's really happening all over the world. From a transaction-oriented business where the pay is strictly commission to all the way to a fee-only business where the pay is fees. And all the layers in between, the fee-based layers in between. And what he found was that the sale value of a fee-only business was 3 to 4 times the sale value of a transaction business, of a commission-oriented business. Well, that's one of the reasons why I think RDR is as a terrific thing. This movement to fees is just a fantastic thing for financial advisors, for our economic well-being, as well as for the tremendous benefits to the clients, obvious benefits to the clients. When you dive into that report, what you discover, what he talks about is the reason underlying that is that the clients in the fee-only business feel a much greater sense of trust. And in that, they feel a layer of trust that, in general, we haven't been able to deliver. I mean, if you think about what the common notion of a financial advisor, or common surveys say, they say, well, when you ask a client, they say, well, I trust my financial advisor, but gosh, I don't trust any of the rest of them. And if you think about that, I mean, how thin is that trust? The next moment that the market falls, suddenly they're not trusting you. It doesn't have to do with anything you do necessarily. Suddenly they're not trusting you. So what we're delivering here is, because we've really listened, we're delivering a tremendously trusted financial advisor, where the client is going to listen much more deeply, much more alertly to what you have to say about markets, how markets work, how financial planning works. Third thing in the client proposition is the client's most meaningful goals, articulated and soon to be accomplished. Those goals I listed up there earlier from the third question, we try to deliver those within a couple of years, by and large. in short order, often within a matter of weeks, many of those things are delivered. So it gets the client feeling, wow, this really works. And then finally, what we do, I mean, our professional skills, what we're trained at, is that financial architecture. And that's in place. And that obviously adds tremendous sense of security to the client. But it's bolstered by feeling this incredible trust in the relationship and in who you are and what it is that your business does. To me, this is humbling. I feel in some ways that it's what financial planning, really where we've been called. It's really the highest level of what we can accomplish. It's an extraordinary thing to be able to deliver this, if you think about it. What profession could be greater, more meaningful, more extraordinary for a client, for the world, than this profession? It's truly humbling. It delivers freedom into people's lives like nothing else in the world. I want to come back just to close reflecting on classical economics, if I might. And one of the great thinkers who lived in these isles a couple hundred years ago, Adam Smith. We all know and believe in the efficiencies of markets. We believe in how supply and demand work. And the question I think that life planning is asking, is addressing, is it really working? What happens when a client is not pursuing what they really care about, what they really want? Is that markets aren't working. They're not demanding what it is that they really want. So one of the things that happens as we do life planning, as life planning becomes common throughout a culture, is that we are improving dramatically the efficiency of markets. So that's one thing, huge economic benefit. Second huge economic benefit is this vitality, this vigor. I got carried away with myself, my own vitality and vigor. This vitality, this vigor that is called forth in a client, so much more powerful than juicing an economy with credit that we can't afford. And I don't mean to take some macroeconomic thing on credit, except we all know that we go through these cycles of excess credit and then we have to pay for it. What an extraordinary thing. Let's life plan people and give that economy that vigor, that vitality that comes out as a consequence. Extraordinary thing for gross domestic product. The third thing is, again, from the macroeconomic consideration. What a curse it is, not only that people are not living into their dreams, but families that are breaking apart, kids that are unhappy, relationships that end in divorce. Many of us have gone through them. The first thing that comes up in life planning is the family. And we help to bring those relationships more close together. So tremendous social value, whether you're talking about the family or the values that we talked about, the creativity that comes out of life planning, the dedication to community that comes out of it. I'd like to close by just saying one thing. One of my larger and perhaps ridiculous and perhaps quixotic visions is, what would it be like? I mean, everybody, we've shifted into the secular world. Everybody is, money really runs the show. What a difference it would make if everybody in the world, and we're working on the middle market. We're going to make that happen here in the UK. In fact, we've got an exciting conference next week, a life planning conference that's going to have some delivery on how do you deliver this to the middle market. What if everybody in the world had a life planner and was living their life plan? Thank you. I think we've got a few minutes left for questions.